Hello, my name is Marcus Robinson, and thank you for registering for this course entitled Think Bigger. Your life depends on it. I'm going to say it again. Think bigger. Your life depends on it. Unless you've been under a rock, you know that we're in a pandemic right now. And then being in a pandemic really means we need to be developing multiple streams of income. Now, you've heard that term forever and a day, multiple streams of income. However, it's really a necessity at this point. It is not optional. This is not a game, people. It is not optional. You have to have multiple streams of income so that we can make sure that people are doing well and they're thriving and they're surviving and not just falling by the wayside. So, in this course, you will learn how to buy, sell, rent, and renovate real estate. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for the past 18 years, and I've gotten good at it over over a period of time. This is the first course of five. Okay, again, this is the first course of five, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with a recent interview that I did a few weeks ago in reference to how do you get started in the real estate business, in the real estate investment business. So we're going to take a little moment and we're going to take time and we're going to look at this video and we'll come right back. Houses, we're at the top of the line. And so part of my quest, part of my purpose is to get to the point where we educate communities of color to get more onto the ownership side, get more into development, get more into building, get more into being in control of your destiny versus someone telling you what your destiny is. That, for me, is huge. When it comes down to ownership, you can't build wealth unless you participate in ownership. And this past weekend, we talked a lot about building wealth. There was the virtual Black Wealth Summit, and it was a major success. Had some awesome speakers that provided amazing information, and the biggest takeaway is that ultimately you have to own something. You have to be properly insured, and you have to have a good attorney. Somebody has to be able to guide you through these processes. So that hopefully, JB, is what you were looking for in terms of answer. We could talk about this type of stuff all day long.
Shoot, I love it, man. No, that is good. I'm sorry, I had to get my video out the way, so I had to discipline some children real quick.
Hey, I get it.
um, but no, that is. I mean, you talk about uh, access to so many things, but in the real estate world, nobody's making any more land. Nobody's developing any more dirt. The developer who developed that is retired, and he's not developing no more of it. And so it only makes sense for us to get our piece. I know even here in the update, there was a report, the Greenville Journal published a report in December of last year talking about the breakdown of home ownership in Greenville. And they were talking about some of the gentrification and all this kind of stuff. But over 60% of African Americans in the upstate are renters. So just primary home ownership is important for us.
Yeah.
Not even before we get into the investing, the real estate investing part, just primary home ownership is investing. I mean, it's important. But I want to talk a little bit, Marcus, about the investing part. So there are so many people that are on here that are watching us live right now who who want to be in the real estate game, who's never even purchased their first property. Like, we're brand new, we're green, we're eager, we're excited. Walk us through, Marcus. What does that look like? How do we do it? How do we purchase our first investment property? And take it away. How do we do that?
All right. So, in any real estate investment, there are basically three areas that you have to be concerned with. The first area is financing. The second area is acquiring the property. The third area is management. Okay, so I'm gonna say that again. So you have financing, you have acquiring the property, and then you have management. Okay, so as it relates to financing, basically you have a couple of types of financing that you can participate in, right? And JB, I have to lay this background because I can't assume that everybody understands real estate financing,
No, do it.
financing in general, right? So the first type of financing that I'll talk about will be traditional financing, where you basically go to a bank or some other lender. Um, you're looking at one piece of property. They offer you a FHA or a VA loan if you've been in the military. That's generally the first type of financing. And then, of course, you have um, other types of financing like seller financing when whoever's trying to sell the property will participate in the financing because the property may or may not qualify for traditional bank financing. Okay, so that's the second one. And then the third one has to do with hard money loans. These are
Mm-hmm.
people, other investors who have money to lend, people who have money to lend, but with with higher interest rates. In some cases, very very high interest rates. So I would probably look at the first two first, just because they're a little bit, in my opinion, a little safer for the first time real estate investor. But as it relates to FHA loans, basically you have to have 3.5% down to use as a down payment, and the bank or the lending institution will provide the rest of the money to buy the property. When it comes to seller financing, it's like the name implies, the seller will participate with a down payment that you negotiate. So obviously, you're going to negotiate as low as you can so that you can get into the deal. But those are the types of financing that are available, and there are other types that you can get into. I mean, because the reality is a typical concern with getting into the real estate business as far as investing goes. Most people say, "Well, I don't have money to do that. I don't have I don't have money to do that." So what I generally tell people is the biggest compliment to someone who doesn't have money is to find someone who does, right? So you find someone who either has money or credit, okay? That's how you get into the real estate business. It's only those two things that's going to keep you out. You have to have money, or you have to have credit, or you have to have both. If you don't have either, you have to find people who you can partner with who have money, credit, or both. Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
hold on, Marcus. Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
I want to talk about this for a little bit because I know people personally who they've said this in the past. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do this, but I don't have the money and I don't have the credit. Or what I hear a lot, what I've been hearing most recently is I got this money right here, but my credit's not great. Or I don't have any money, but I have great credit. So you're telling me that we can how am I understanding you correctly when I say you can have money and not have the perfect credit and still get into real estate investing, or you can have no money and have good credit and get into real estate investing?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
So if you have the worst credit on the planet, right? Let's say your credit score is a 450, 500, whatever it comes out to be. Um, you may not qualify for an FHA loan. You might qualify for what they call a conventional loan, meaning you just have to put more money down. It might
Mm-hmm.
cost you 10 or 15, 20%. It might cost you, but you can get in the deal if you have the money, but you might not necessarily have the credit. Conversely,
Mm-hmm.
if you have the credit, let's say your credit score is almost perfect, you at 775, 800, you higher than me. But the reality is, if you have the credit but don't have the money, in most cases, you may qualify for 100% financing. And if you don't qualify for 100% financing, you can use your credit report in the deal as a negotiating tool. So let's just say the whoever the seller is, they may elect to take back the 3.5% that you need to close the deal just because you have good credit and you can pay them back over time. There's several ways to get into this thing, but you have to have one or the other. You have to have good credit, or you have to have a decent amount of money.
Awesome. Okay, so we figured out our financing solution, and we're on the journey to purchase this home, and we got our financing squared away. We know how we're going to pay for it. What's next, Mike?
So once we have financing secured, and before we leave that, when I say you've secured your financing, that means you have a letter from the bank or somebody saying that they're going to finance the deal. Okay, because the next part of what we're going to talk about as far as acquiring the property, you're going to have a letter to say that you have the money secured in order to buy the property. Okay, so the second thing we'll discuss would be acquiring the property. Okay, you got your money secured, but now how do we find these properties? What types of properties are we looking for? What would I suggest would be a good first time real estate investment? For me, if I had to do this in 2020 and I was just starting, I probably would look for properties less than 5 units, meaning I would look for a duplex, maybe a triplex or a quadruplex. Um, and the reason I would do that is because obviously in times like these, paying rent is a challenge, could be for some. And so what you do is you look at trying to figure out how you can develop multiple streams of income using one investment. And the way to do that is a quadruplex, a duplex, um, or a triplex. And so for me, that would be how I would start. When it comes down to looking for those properties, I would find a really good realtor, an experienced realtor who understands investment property, someone who has closed numerous investment deals. When it comes down to realtors, just like doctors, just like lawyers, they are not all created equally. So you have to be aware of those people who just got their real estate license or who may have had a real estate license for a while, but they don't have your best interest at heart. You have to almost separate your traditional mindset for that of an investor. So for me, it's all about the property. It's not about the realtor. It's not about me. It's about making sure that the deal goes through. So I have to make sure that everybody's on the team. So when you are developing a mindset of a real estate investor, you have to understand that you don't do this by yourself. I have a team of people that help me do every deal. Okay, that team would include attorneys, realtors, appraisers, contractors. Okay, these are people who are on your team who have your best interest at heart and who want to see you succeed. If you have people on your team who don't want to see you succeed, you have to get rid of those people immediately. Okay,
that's good.
It's not personal, but the reality is, if I don't have a realtor on my team who's willing to take their commission over time as opposed to get paid like right at closing because they just have to have it, if that's not an option, if that's something that you're not willing to do, you can't be on my team, because the reality is I might need the 3% that that I'm gonna pay you to help close the deal, and I'll pay, you'll get paid maybe 30 days out, 60 days out. But you have to understand that if you're on the Robinson Group team, that's what that means. And there are not a lot of realtors, quite frankly, who are willing to do that because they don't see the end game. They don't see the long money. They just see from, transaction to transaction. And so what you have to do in acquiring those properties, you have to make sure that you have realtors who understand the area and how that area performs. Because if you don't understand how the area performs, you won't be able to educate me as an investor when I start asking questions about the trends in that area. So you have to make sure that these realtors are riding the areas, that they know the nuances in these areas. They need to know how much rent is in the areas that they're talking about selling property to you. They need to understand how appraisals work. They need to understand how to do simple calculations. They need to understand how to measure a house, comps. It's so many things that they have to understand, and you can't take for granted for. Okay, you can't take it for granted that they understand. The reality is, when you go to real estate school, you do not learn how to make money. You learn how not to get sued. Okay, so you have to understand, if you have someone on your team who does not understand how money works, they probably don't need to be on your team long, or they have to come up, step up their game.
So Marcus, so you said something critical. You started talking about understanding how the money works, and that person not being able to be a part of your team if they don't understand how the money works. Right. So again, this is our first property. We got our financing squared away. We got our letter or we got our cash. We got everything we need for financing. We've identified a property. How do I know what numbers should I be looking for to see is this going to be a good deal or not?
Okay, so that what you're really describing is how much money do I plan to make?
Right.
Um, so that's an individual decision. For me, when we started, we primarily did rentals, and the reason we started out with rental property was because we understood that we were looking at a long-term investment. We understood that we wanted to have a career as real estate investors, and what happens, quite frankly, is banks become your partners, other lenders, other investors, and people want to make sure that you're stable. So a sign of stability is having a portfolio of rental property. Now, I also mentioned the fact that we flip property, but when you flip property, it's almost like starting over, again. I mean, reality is you have a product, you rebuild it, you sell it, and you can't eat again until you do it again, right?
Right.
So when it comes down to making sure that you find out which type of investment best suits you, that's also going to kind of determine the type of profit potential that you're dealing with. So like for me, if you're not doing at least, I would say 60 to 80% return, just cash on cash on a rental property, it's not worth my time. And the reason is you're going to have repairs from time to time.
Okay, so Marcus, hold on. Let me slow you down. So we got some people watching this who may not even know what you mean by 80% cash on cash return for your rental property.
All right, so
explain to them what you mean by cash on cash return.
So
80%.
All right, in 30 seconds. So let's just say the first definition that we have to understand is what we call ROI, or return on investment. Okay, which means basically if I put out $10, how much money am I going to get back for my $10? All right. So if I say 80% return, that really means that if I give you $10, I'm going to get 18 back. Okay, that's what that means. And so you put that in the context of rent. If your rent is $1,000 a month, right? Or if I give out $1,000 a month, I should get 1,800 back, right? So it's just a matter of numbers that you feel comfortable with. The reason I suggest 80% is because when you have repairs, you have to get those repairs oftentimes done in the context of the rent that people are supplying. So you still want to make money after your repair. So you still have to make sure that you have enough cushion in there to do that. I hope I was kind of clear. I hope.
Very clear. Very clear. Very clear. All right. So we've identified this property. We've got the money. We've identified this property. We've come to grips with this is in line with the terms that we have for ourselves in the amount of money that we want to make. Is there what's left to do, Marcus? How daunting is it? Is that team you talked about earlier? Is that also going to be a part of the team that helps me get this property into rental mode or into flip mode? Like, how do I fix it? Like, do me and the kids go out there and grab a hammer? Like, what happens?
Well, I'll say it this way. My experience was I didn't grab a hammer. I didn't grab a screwdriver. I just utilized the gift of gab and just a little bit of wisdom. Look, I'm a piano player. I don't really, the whole idea of slinging hammers, some people do it, it's just not my gift. And I'm not trying to pray for it to be my gift. So what I did on the first deal, basically, I just found a local handyman. And granted, this is 2002, when you had dial-up internet. You didn't even have high-speed internet. So, it's so many ways you can find people now. But I found a local handyman who basically charged me a daily rate. And I basically laid out the scope of work of what I needed to be done in the house. And he met that obligation. He got paid. I rented the house a couple of days later. And that was, like I said, that was the first of many. So, it's one of those things. Now you have Angie List, you have Craigslist, you have Thumbtack.com, you have several outlets that you can find contractors and handymen and tradesmen. So, you don't really have to look that hard. And if you don't even want to go on the internet, just go to Home Depot at 7:30 in the morning and just start talking to contractors. You will see them. Trust me, they're there. Because any good contractor will be at Home Depot when it opens, and maybe around 7 to about 9, you're going to see a lot of contractors because we get all of our materials in the morning. Because you want to get all your materials in the morning, get your scope of work done, get your guys or your ladies working, and you do it again the next day. Okay.
Got it. That's good. That's good. Awesome, Marcus. Well, thank you so much. We have about 4 minutes left. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier, because I think at the end of the day, um, outside of our primary residence, I think at the end of the day, the main reason that folks will go into real estate investing is that they want to have some type of additional income, right?
Yeah.
You said the word earlier when you was talking about that income, and you and Corey got started. Y'all went into rental because y'all wanted some stability. Y'all knew this was long term for you guys. But also, there's something about that rental income, and we're not trying to, just for those of you that are watching, I'm not pushing you to say, hey, you need to rent, or you need to flip, or you need to wholesale, whatever you do. I just want you to have information. But I do understand the concept of passive income. That's one of the main reasons that led me to my career, is that I get long-term passive income by helping people one time. You help somebody one time solve a problem, and that solution pays you long term, meaning I don't have to go out and put sweat equity in right now again. So can you talk to us a little bit about why passive income is so important? And I want us to wrap up these last 3 minutes talking about the passive income and why is it so important.
Okay. There was a statistic, I want to say, by the Selig Center. They're in Georgia, and they mentioned a couple of years ago that the average American only has about $250 in their savings account. Okay, $250. Okay, so there's a huge need for financial education and for people to understand the types of income that exist. So you have, what we call linear income, where you basically go in and you work every day, you get a check on Friday or every other Friday, however it goes. And then there's monthly income, there's passive income, where basically checks come to your house, money's deposited into your bank account. That's the type of education that we have to start getting more and more involved in, just understanding where we are and where we want to be. So when you talk about retirement, for instance, retirement is all about passive income. The question is, when do you get to do it, and how much do you get?
That's
right?
it.
There will be a time where you're not going to be able to work like you work now. Okay. And you're not going to want to. Even if you can, you're not going to want to.
Right.
Okay. So the things that I was doing in my 20s as a real estate investor, I shy away from now. I'm not looking to be on the job site at 7:15. Okay. I might still do it from time to time, but the reality is that's not like what I'm looking to do all the time. All right. But I do enjoy the fact that there's money coming to me if I don't leave my house. Okay. That's what we mean when we say passive income. The thing about real estate investing, it can be slightly addictive because once you reach a little bit of success in it, you'll want to keep doing it, and you'll start thinking past yourself. And so now for me, I have to show my sons how to be real estate investors. I honestly believe that they should be the Lord of their land. And the reality is, if they're not looking in that vein, I'm doing something wrong. This is what I do, part of what my family does. And so I have to share what I know as they grow. Okay. For me, what would be really good, instead of getting them a car for their 16th birthday, 18th birthday, what if they bought a property?
Love it.
So what if they took that same property, and when they went to college, their friends rented from them? And then when they finished college, instead of having student loan debt, what if they just sold a house and made money, and they got paid for getting their degree?
Love it. Love it, Marcus. Well, awesome, man. Well, we are at the 11:30 time frame. I have to run. I have to jump off. I want to open it up to take maybe one or two questions. So I've put it out there. Those of you that are watching us, I think there's a slight delay, but I put it out there. For, do I have any questions? So, Kanisha, yes, it can be very addictive. Kanisha saying it can be very addictive. Um, so, Marcus, um, really quick, what's the best way? And I think you talked about this a little bit earlier. And you might just want to reiterate what's the best way to find an investment property. So, if you can reiterate that real quick while I look for another question.
The best way to find a property is to find a really good realtor who can turn you on to the properties that you're trying to get. I cannot um, stress enough the importance of having really, really good real estate professionals. If you don't have any, or you can just inbox me. I'll tell you how to develop a list of things to look for realtors. But if you didn't do any of that, you can go to realtor.com. You can ride around in the area that you want to invest in. You can do Zillow. These are all websites that will basically give you basic information about the area, basic information about the property, and give you an idea of whether or not you really want to be in that area.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcus. LaRon asked, what other ways should we save beyond an emergency fund? And what goals do you have to set beyond the standard thousand emergency fund? So, LaRon, so great question. I want to segue. I want to take privilege over this one, Marcus. So, guys, what we're doing is we're going to bring you these 30-minute impact. April is Financial Literacy Month, and we're going to be breaking down. I have some amazing, phenomenal speakers that have spoken to us with the Black Wealth Summit, and these guys have agreed to take time out of their schedules even more. Y'all gonna have me forever in debt to these folks because I can't afford them. They're all way more knowledgeable than I am. I'm just a sponge soaking it all in and implementing this stuff as well. But we're going to do every Tuesday, 11 o'clock, and every Saturday morning, we're going to take 30 minutes and we're going to take one of these speakers and we're going to take a deep dive. So, LaRon, we're going to actually get into that and talk about that on another one of these. But beyond the $1,000, beyond the $1,000 emergency fund, I tell people just from a typical saving perspective, have 3 to 6 months worth of your income set aside somewhere as best as possible. And with that 3 month, once you get 1,000, that 3 month, at least try to do like a high yield savings account or something like that. If you're not going to actually kind of invest it in some type of money markets or mutual funds or something, because you want it to be liquid, but you also want to earn something on it. And a high yield savings account, you can get 2 to 5%, 2 to 2.5% on that money in some type of high yield savings account. My family, we use Ally for our high yield savings account, and it's something that's out of sight, out of mind. It's like we can't actually touch it, so it has to be an emergency, and then it takes me a couple of days to get it. So it's not just a splurge type deal. I actually learned that from Marcus. Like, man, put your money somewhere else, because otherwise you're just gonna be going to get it and grabbing it. But I also want to say this, and we really, really got to go because I got another room going that's gonna start at 11:30 that somebody's waiting on. I really want to say this. Don't let excuses stop us from investing in real estate. I think we can always find a reason not to do something. We can always say the timing's not right. I don't have enough money. But Marcus just told us how to do it without money, without credit. Don't be afraid of partnerships. One of the things that you might be thinking is, oh, I don't necessarily trust this person. Marcus, tell us how to get over the trust factor real quick in real estate. Please tell us real quickly.
So if you don't trust people, if that's an issue for you, and especially in our community, we have an issue trusting family and friends. The reality is, I mentioned earlier that you have to have a team of professionals to make this happen. An attorney is a part of that team, and so if it's worth doing, it's worth writing down. I'm gonna say that again. If it's worth doing, it's worth writing down and getting notarized, I should say. Okay, that's how we overcome trust issues.
So in layman's term, Put it in writing. Get a contract. Get a contract. I don't have to trust you to have a legally binding contract with you.
Right.
All right. I don't have to trust you to do that. I have strengths that I bring to the table. You got strengths you bring to the table. Let's get this work done. Let's make this money. Let's start building wealth and creating wealth so we can leave a legacy. And let's make sure we just put it down in writing. We put it down in writing. Let's make sure. Absolutely last question, Marcus. And is it better to try to invest in rough areas or affluent neighborhoods in terms of return on your money?
Well, I can only speak for myself. When I'm coming from a teacher's background, right? I taught fifth grade and I taught seventh grade. I didn't make a whole lot of money doing that. It was greatly rewarding, have some great students, but the reality is I couldn't afford to invest initially in affluent areas. And quite frankly, everybody has to have a place to live. But, when I mentioned that return on investment earlier, if I can get 80% return on an investment buying a $10,000 house, and I can get an 80% investment buying a $130,000 house, I'm going to take the $10,000 house because I can buy more of them. Ultimately, your buying power will be longer if you're buying lower price housing. If you're dealing with more affluent areas, you're not going to be able to go as far unless you have partners or banks who really see your vision.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Marcus, thank you so much for your time, man. I greatly appreciate it. Real quick before we jump off, can you tell the people how to contact you, how to find you? Maybe they want to partner on a deal. Maybe they got money and want to do something and they're absolutely scared of the process. So tell folks how they can reach you, how they can find you.
Okay. Well, on social media, you can find me at Marcus G. Robinson at Facebook. You can Google Marcus G. Robinson and you'll see videos, live videos that'll come up. And as far as our website, it's www.rgpofsc.com. Again, that's www.rgpofsc.com. On Instagram, you can find me at Robinson Group One.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. We're tuning off. I am Javerdis Burnett. This has been Marcus Robinson. And be on the lookout over the next couple of weeks as we celebrate Financial Literacy Month, as we bring on more of our special guests to dive deep into some amazing topics for you guys.
All right. I hope you enjoyed what you saw in that interview. This is like they say, Financial Literacy Month. We're in April right now. And it's majorly important that we start to think about our financial literacy. It's not just about real estate, but it's about your total financial health. And so in that same vein, one of the things I wanted to talk about in thinking bigger and making sure that we get to the point where we think much bigger than what we've been thinking is to talk about what success looks like. The old model of success is dead. It is absolutely dead. And the reality is the old model kind of looked like this. You go to school, you get great grades, you go to college, you get a job, you hope it pays you enough to retire, and ultimately you go sit on the porch and we see what happens after that, okay? That's your old model of success. And the reality is it's dead. It's not working right now. I did a little bit of research, and according to this research I did with Experian, the average student loan debt is $35,000. $35,000. $35,359 to be exact. But this is $35,000 a year. Okay, that is huge when you think about it. It's over $100,000 in debt if you just decide to go to undergrad. That does not include graduate school, post-grad. Okay, this is a lot of money. Okay, and so when you start to think about, shelling out all of this money or getting in debt for formal education, we need to ask some questions at this point. This is 2020, and we have to ask the right questions. The questions are, what does my return look like on this money that I'm borrowing? Because I'm going to be paying it back for a while. The average the average payback time is almost 25 years or more. Okay, it's 25 years or more to pay back student loans. Okay, so when you think about it now, if you graduated in 97 from college, and here we are in 2020, at what point was your education obsolete? And was it worth the money that you borrowed to go? Well, I'm gonna paint a bleak picture, but it's gonna get better, I promise. 54% of individuals take on loan debt to pay for formal education. In other words, most people that go to college get a loan. Okay? Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the reality. Most people who go to college get a student loan. Okay? 10.8% of student loan debt is at least 90 days due or in default. Now, what you're going to find out about me really, really quickly is the fact that I do numbers pretty well and I interpret numbers pretty well. What we're saying is that most people don't have the money to go to school, and most people don't have the money to pay for school when they're finished. Okay, that's what we're looking at when we start interpreting these numbers, these statistics. Okay, and so you have to start looking at asking the right questions. What is my return? What do I get for going to school all of these years? How much money did I actually make? How much money did I actually save? How much money was I actually able to invest? How much money was I able to give away? Because that's pretty important. We got to get to the point where we think even about philanthropy. Okay, so student loan debt is a major, major issue. And so I don't want to take it lightly, because dealing with student loan debt absolutely goes back to the core of what we believe in terms of what real education is. And we probably need at some point to define what real education is. Real education is practical. It is not simply academic. And so when we get to the point where we think about what real education is, we can address some of these issues. So I'm going to go ahead and reiterate right now, the average person is paying or borrowing, I should say, almost $30,000, $35,000. Okay. And ultimately not getting the return that they want for it. 54%, or most people, they actually pay to go to school. They get debt to go to school. 10% can't pay for that debt once they leave school and get that degree. We got to figure this thing out. Okay, so the obvious question is, why real estate investing? Why? A lot of other types of investing we can get into, but why real estate investing? Well, you've got to have passive income. Now, like I said, we're in 2020. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and we need income, passive income. Right now, the government is giving us stimulus checks and trying to do the best they can with a bad situation. The reality is we need passive income. We need to be able to get income coming to our mailbox, going to our direct deposit when we're not going outside our house, when we can't go outside of our house. It used to be an option. Now it's not an option. It's a necessity. It's a necessity. So it's not all bad. The key to thinking bigger is perspective. The key to thinking bigger is perspective. How do you see things? What do you see? What do you see around you? What do you see in your house? What do you see in your neighborhood? What do you see in your cell phone? Who are your contacts? Who are you connected to? Once you start to understand what you see, then you can talk about what you can siege, what you can possess, what you can take over. And ultimately, we've got to get to the point where we have that type of mindset. Traditional thinking says, whatever you give me, I'll take it and I'll do something better with it. I'll make lemonade out of lemons. All these type of sayings. Reality is everything is about perspective. My thing is, I don't want you to give me lemons. I want you to give me the farm where we make the lemons, where we plant the seeds. That's more important to me. So you're going to hear me challenging traditional thinking throughout this whole course, because what we've done up to this point hadn't yielded the return that we're trying to get. So we got to do something different. Okay? Now, what if purchasing a 4-unit apartment building, just a quadruplex, could prevent student loans for your children as an alternative to the 529 savings plan that is generally marketed to new parents? My wife and I, we have 3 children. Right now they're 7, 1, 7, and we have twins that are 5. And so when you think about savings plans, you think about the condition of our economy, it's going to be real tough to save for 3 children when it comes down to college. So we have to have another strategy. Real estate just happens to kind of fit in this whole thing for me. So when it comes down to educating our children, of course, I'm going to teach them what I'm teaching you. But the reality is, we do want them to go to college. We want them to be exposed. And, college is not a bad thing. Just to clear this up, I am not against college education. My wife and I both are master's prepared people who've gone through the process. And so matter of fact, I met my wife in graduate school. So I'm extremely grateful to God for college. But how we're financing and how we're paying for college is where my issue is. Okay. Generally, what's marketed to us is the 529 college savings plan, and generally has to be used for education. Not even generally, it's an education plan, so it has to be used specifically for college. Now, if you can imagine having a 4-unit apartment building paying rent, you have tenants paying rent for 15, 16, 18 years, college might be paid for. Imagine that. Now think about it. You're not going to be able to save that much money and live. So, it could be a situation where the rents take care of college, or it could be the equity in that property that takes care of college. So we got to start thinking a little bit differently. Imagine you bought the quadruplex in the same town. If you got started late, you buy the quadruplex in the same town that your child goes to college, your kid goes to college, and imagine his 3 roommates paying you rent every month. That's that's a lot better than that infamous meal plan on college campuses and paying for housing. This is not the 70s, 80s, or 90s. We got to start thinking differently. We've got to start challenging the traditional thoughts that we've been given. And so in that same vein, I want to kind of lay out some sample deals that I've done just to give you an idea of some things that we can do differently, some things that you can do differently in your city. Okay, so the sample deal. 123 Main Street is a deal comprised of 3 commercial buildings that need approximately $50,000 of work. The asking price is $550,000 through a local realtor. Now, let me just start by saying it's a sample deal to you, but it's a very real deal to me, because this is actually where one of our offices, this is the deal that I did with one of our offices. So it's very real to me. And so I'm going to fill in the blanks. After negotiations, we acquired the property for $175,000. Say that again. we actually acquired the property for $175,000 from $550,000. The comparables at the time valued the property at $750,000. So just think about this. This property was valued at $750,000. They were asking $550,000, which means technically I was still getting it below value. But as an investor, you've got to think past all of what you see, and you never ever take the first deal. Good deals are never given to you. They're always negotiated. No one owes you anything. You only get what you negotiate. So let's be clear. Now, the owners that the owners at the time, I should say, it was two brothers. They didn't get along at all. And I mean, to the point where they really hated each other. They couldn't be in the same room. And so I separated the brothers, talked to them differently, talked to them on different days, talked to them in different cities. And ultimately, I got them to agree that they wanted to sell this property just to sever any other ties that they had. You know, and so for me, you take a bad situation and you do something good with it. The one brother was in the hospital, nursing home, I think. And the other brother, he was relatively, he was okay. He was retired. But reality is they both needed money. They both didn't like each other and they wanted to sever ties. And so what we did in a case like that, we put everything on paper. I let them know what I could pay for the property because there was a lot of repairs that needed to happen in order to make that property profitable. And so I sold them on the fact that I had to do a lot of work. And the reality is, it's 3 buildings, so I did have to do a lot of work. But at the same time, I was making sure that they understood that they weren't going to get $500,000 for this property. That wasn't happening. So what we did, we negotiated this thing down to $175,000. And the sweet part of this deal is the fact that when you have $50,000 of repairs to any property, most banks don't really want to finance that because they're looking at it from the standpoint, if I default, they just have a property that looks like trash, and they're not in the real estate business. They are in the financing business. So what I did, I got the seller to participate in the financing. I let them know, look, this property probably will not conform to bank standards. So as a result, I need you to help me get into this deal. I need you to participate in this financing so that you can get paid. I can get this building. I can move my office. I can make this whole campus look a lot better, and we're all profitable. So after much negotiation, after much talking, after a few lunches, the seller agreed to participate in the financing for 5 years. Well, the way this deal went down is I put $40,000. We put $40,000 down at 5% for 5 years. The payment was about $1,700. And so, anytime you have payments at $1,700 and you have $50,000 worth of repairs, you're going to need time to actually do the work. So part of my negotiation was making sure that the seller understood that we needed to suspend payments for at least 6 months. Now, I asked for a year. They didn't give me a year, of course, but they did give me 6 months. So I took the 6 months and I rehabbed the property, and it became an amazing experience because I found out so much history about this property. One of the main buildings where my office is, the house was built in 1910. And so when we started to rehab the property and we started to uncover all of these hidden gems, as I call them, I had a ball rehabbing that property. It was fun for me. And so I'm going to take a minute just to kind of break this up so that you can kind of see this video on how we actually did this rehab. So
people always ask me, why am I always so
morning. Good morning. Hope all is well. Figured I'd make this little video. We're in the middle of doing some tile work, and I decided to check up on my contractor just to make sure everything was good. And for the most part, everything is good. But when I looked at everything and where everything was supposed to be, I noticed that they were tiling the wrong room, which should be interesting when they get here. But they are actually in the middle of trying to tile an office. No plumbing, but they want to tile an office. But anyway, the good thing is I caught them in time, so there's no tile, just the backer board, the wonder board. So we should be good. But yeah, again, for those who want to invest in real estate, this is why you check up on your people. You get to your job sites early, so that you can kind of see what went on the previous day and you can kind of manage it. All right, anyway, hope all is well. Have an amazing day, Facebook. Take care.
Now you may not understand about the man I'm talking about.
Well, today is Friday, and we are out here at 1620 Broad River. It's been a while, but we got a whole lot done. The funny thing is, I'm not really sold on the colors that I painted this building. It's okay, but it's not what I thought. I'm pretty sure my brother will concur. It's not the paint color that he thought. Sometimes, guess what? You just make mistakes when it comes to this stuff. So at the end of the day, we might have to repaint this. So I'm meeting with contractors now. These guys are putting up siding, making sure the building pop. But I think I'm gonna have to do something else with the color. Yeah, I love it. And so it's not what I like to do, but at the end of the day, it's what probably needs to be done. So at any rate, you'll hear from me about this. We'll see.
Best friend of and Lord, you are the reason that makes the world go round. Now you may not get the credit 'cause the world seems to forget that you are the reason why they're here. So I'ma be the voice to lift your name up and rejoice and make it clear. So I tell them that it's you. You're the reason why I smile. You're the reason why I smile. You pick me up when I am low. You pick me up when I am low. That's what you get when you're his child. That's what you get when you're his child. So much that I can say. There's so much that I can say about the man I'm referring to. The man that I'm referring to. Jesus, 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 Jesus.
Tell you what, like I said, this is a great deal, but it was a deal that we had to literally craft. Okay, it didn't just come; we had to craft it. Okay, and of course, we had the favor of God. I mean, just I am a Christian, so let me just go ahead and say that we don't do these types of things on our own. We do have faith in, yes, our abilities, but at the same time, we know that there is a higher power that is making all of this stuff possible. But at any rate, this is a deal summary slide where we're going to talk about the breakdown. Okay, after I rehabbed the property, this property was divided into individual offices. Okay, at least two of the buildings, for a total of $35.75 a month. $35.75 a month. Again, our company occupied one of the buildings, and so that left two to rent. All right, so the expenses on the deal were about $2,200 a month. That included utilities as well as the mortgage payment to the seller. Okay, so then our net operating income on this particular deal is $1,375 a month. That's what drops out. Okay, so after all the expenses, That's what drops out every month. So basically, to summarize this thing, the main idea is we purchased and controlled 3 buildings valued at $750,000 for a cash investment of $40,000. In addition, we net $1,375 a month for the privilege. Okay, so again, this is an example of a deal that you have to craft. And part of the reason I believe that this deal is important is because there are going to be a whole lot of commercial buildings that will be available. Okay, and now we're going to have to repurpose some of these buildings because some businesses will fall by the wayside as a result of this whole COVID-19 business. And so we're going to have to repurpose our buildings. We're going to have to repurpose our real estate. We're going to have new businesses that occupy, and we're going to have to really start thinking about how the world will function after COVID-19. Okay, so this is not a gloom and doom type of thing, but it is an opportunity, and so it is very important that we understand how deals are structured, so that we can make sure that when we start purchasing real estate that we'll really have an idea of how to make this thing work. Okay, so keep in mind, every time you buy something, you should negotiate it. That's the first thing. Every time you buy something, you should negotiate it. You should think it through. Okay, get all of the information. If you notice, in this particular deal, I was able to get comparables from my realtors. They helped me make decisions on what this property was actually worth. And then they also helped me make decisions on what I should offer on it based on the amount of work that I had to do and the purpose in which we were going to use the property. Okay, so realtors have their place. They are important. I'm a realtor myself. I'm a real estate broker. I've been one for over 10 years. And so, there's a special way that you have to work with realtors, because the reality is most realtors don't work with investors. So it's going to take a special type of realtor to see your vision, to get on board, and to kind of help see it through. So I need to say that. The other thing is, if you notice, I always took a accurate assessment of what had to be done. So like, for instance, I know that I had to replace roofing. I had to replace plumbing. There was some electrical work that had to be done. Okay. And so this is, these are all the things that you generally don't see. I mean, you see a roof, but you don't see plumbing. You don't see electrical. You don't see what's behind the walls or underneath the ground, but that stuff costs money. Okay. So you can't neglect that. It's more than just paint and wood and finishings. So you have to know that every deal does cost you more than what you plan most of the time. And it's not because you don't know how to budget. It's just the things that you don't see and some things that you can't account for. So, these deals, they're crafted, but they are doable. And so that is a deal summary. Now, you may be asking yourself, how can I find a deal like this? They're all over the place. Let me just start by saying there's no way that one person can buy all of the real estate in your city. There's so many opportunities. And so that's what I want to talk about now. I want to talk about the opportunities. How do we find a deal during a pandemic? The reality is in this pandemic, we can't even go outside of our homes. We can't do business like we normally do. We can't, go out and visit. We can't, there's social distancing. You can't get a haircut. You can't do most of it, of the things that we're used to. Right. And so how do you find a deal in the midst of a pandemic? Well, I have some suggestions. Number one, send out a text message to everybody that's in your cell phone. The average person, I talked to a guy maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was changing out phones, and I asked him, I said, how many, what's on average, how many contacts does the average person have? Average person has about 2,500 contacts in their phone. And so if you can imagine you wanting to get in the real estate business, wanting to get in the real estate industry as an investor, you have 2,500 opportunities in your cell phone to get in that business. You know, somebody's gonna die. Somebody's gonna get divorced. Somebody's gonna have a baby. Somebody's gonna get older. Okay, we're all getting older, but all of these types of situations bring changes in housing. Okay, when I was 21, you know, climbing steps is not a big deal. At 40, climbing stairs is not a big deal. By the time I'm 90, it might be a situation, which means I'm going to be selling this house, or we're going to have to do some major renovations to the bottom half of the house in order to accommodate. Okay, so all of these types of situations bring on housing changes. So, you know, out of 2,500 people, surely somebody knows where dilapidated property is. Surely somebody knows somebody who got divorced, died, had a baby, or just got older and need to do something with that property. Okay. So there's several opportunities in your cell phone to find out what's in your neighborhood. Okay. That's the first thing. Start connecting with people. Don't have any dead contacts in your phone. All of the people that you hadn't talked to in a year, send them a text message. You know, now let me preface all of this by saying, please don't just send a random text to someone that you hadn't talked to in 2 or 3 years, talking about your real estate wants, needs, and aspirations. You don't want to do that. You want to rekindle the relationship. You want to try to get something started. You want to talk about, you know, how they've been, what's been going on. Is everything okay? Right now, again, we're in a pandemic. So, you know, it's a perfect time to call people and just say, look, I'm just calling to check on you. I'm just calling to make sure that you're on the right side of the right side of the dirt. You know, I'm just wanting to make sure that your family is good. So text message somebody, start that relationship, start that conversation, start that discourse. Okay. That's where we start. The second thing, seek out an experienced realtor. Seek out an experienced realtor, someone who knows the area, somebody who knows how to drive the area, someone who understands the nuances in those areas, somebody, you know, who understands that, you know, being on a real estate team is just that. You know, they can't operate as an individual. I can't operate as an individual. This is a team effort. This is a team sport. And the only way we're going to win is if we operate as a team. Okay, which means if I'm the quarterback, they got to follow my lead. Okay, so every realtor will not be a team player. Every realtor will not want to work with you. So, you know, one of the things that you're going to have to get used to is an acquired taste. Is this thing called rejection. If you're putting in 20, 30 offers a week, a lot of them will be rejected. Okay, be clear. A lot of them will be rejected, and that's okay. You know, because it's the rejection is only for today. You know, the situation may change 6 months from now. You know, so you know, don't take it personally. That's just kind of what it is. You know, when I started in the real estate business, what was happening is we used to actually have the state newspaper where I live in Columbia, South Carolina. We took the state newspaper. I took the state newspaper and literally on Sundays, I would comb that paper looking for certain types of ads and certain types of buzzwords. And I would make a list of all of those properties and all of those people. And I would call literally starting at about 7:30 in the morning on Monday. And it would probably be about 2 hours I would be calling, but I would make literally 20, 30 calls a day in some cases. Okay, 20, 30 calls a day on property that I thought somebody might want to sell me. Okay, so if I made 100 calls that week, I can guarantee you I only had maybe 15, 20 deals on the table. And out of the 15 or 20 deals, I could probably only take advantage of maybe 5 to 6. Okay, so it is a numbers game. You have to understand that going in. But finding an experienced realtor, someone who can really help navigate some of these waters, is priceless. Okay, let me keep going. Create a Facebook group of people in the industry. One thing you can do is be an influencer. You can be the person who gathers all of the people, you know, all of the people who are knowledgeable, all of the people who know things about this industry. You can be the party starter. You can be the place where everyone gathers. Okay, so you can create a Facebook group of people who are knowledgeable about the business and start to exchange ideas. Okay. That's something that you can do tonight. Um, drive for dollars. It still works. Okay. Driving for dollars still works. And if you never heard that term, driving for dollars, all that really means is you're looking for dilapidated property. And everybody knows where those properties are. There's a side of town in every city, in every in every town that nobody really wants to go on. People don't really want to go, out there after 6 o'clock. All of those types of things. So driving for dollars, generally we do that for dilapidated properties, just because it's an easy way to come up on some deals. So these are some ways that you can find deals during a pandemic. Okay. Now, guess what? if all of this stuff that I just said, if none of it works, don't give up. Okay. Keep calling, keep texting, and keep messaging on social media. It is absolutely critical to your success. Okay. So if you call 5 people and you get 5 rejections, just know you need to call 5 more. And if you get 5 more rejections, call 5 more. And if you get 5 more rejections, call 20 more. Somebody will say yes. Okay. Now, a few months ago when it was cold, the boys they were out riding bikes, and I'm gonna let you see a piece of this video because what they said, even at 5 years old, was critical and it blessed me. So check this out. Kayla, what you got going on? You been spinning your wheels. Uh-oh, tragedy. You good?
Yes.
Come on, get on up. Caleb, get up. Come on, show me something. There you go.
I'm never giving up.
There you go.
Daddy, I'm never giving up.
That's what I'm talking about. Caleb, you got out of that ditch, didn't you? You were spinning your wheels just like some adults. Come on, show me something. Come on. Come on, move it. There you go. Come on. It's a life lesson in that. What's up, Mark?
I'm right here.
You right here?
Yeah, I'm putting it in the bed.
Oh, okay. All right. So, when it comes right down to it, real estate is still the greatest thing on the planet. It is the greatest industry on the planet still, hands down. And so it's one of those things where, just like anything else, it takes work. It is not it's not overnight when it comes to your success, but it is very doable. Okay, so this course generally is about an hour, and right now we're running overtime. But if you have questions, send me an email at marcusgrobinson@gmail.com. Or you can find me on social media. I prefer Facebook because I have a private group where I basically I put all the courses. And so if you would just send me an inbox message on Facebook, it'll be great. But there is a business builders group that you can join that has about 1,100 other business owners who can talk to you a little bit about the real estate that they have. Or there is a think real estate group on Facebook as well, because I wanted to make sure that we could all connect. There's a Think Big, Your Life Depends on It group on Facebook. And right now, it's only comprised of those who pay for the course. And the reason I have it that way is because I want to make sure that I'm providing value every time I speak to you guys. All right. So at this time, this ends our time together. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to inbox me or send me an email at marcusgrobinson@gmail. Our website is www.rgpofsc.com. Again, that's www.rgpofsc.com. You can also just Google Marcus G. Robinson, and you will see several real estate videos of projects that we've done and or projects that we're doing. But at this time, I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at some other time. Thank you very much. Thanks.